these inner outer journeys, the internal and the external, are really quite fascinating. Lately it's been seeing how much the waiting game comes to play. And the waiting game is internally like waiting for the validation, waiting for the confirmation, waiting for the compliment, waiting for the excuse, consistently waiting for the external, whatever it is. Sometimes it's validation. I know for myself, it's waiting for the healthier dialogue from others versus internally starting to create it. Recognizing that there's this kind of autopilot inner mechanism, whether it's worry, negative self-talk, that plays like in a spin reel. So lately the discussion has been with myself has been about the limbic system. And the limbic system is quite fascinating. To briefly put, is how the body records, how the mind records events, experiences, and things that have happened. Looking at the mental and emotional impressions from those experiences, and looking at how they have an effect on our reality and our direct influence in our day-to-day activity. So a lot of this has been that, for myself, I don't have television in my home. Now, with my family, like, I have access to television. With other people, I do have a TV, but I don't have, like, news. I don't have live TV. And I don't really have social media. I don't. I have my YouTube channel, but I don't scroll. So as a result, I'm left in my own internal void of processing and thinking. And a lot of this during the day has been seeking, right, from within, silence, kind of like rest, but also like getting very clear on how much there is an awareness of myself that's always listening. And as it's always listening is not always just clairaudience. Sometimes it's just listening to the inner voice, but never directing a new internal message or a new story. So it's constantly waiting. And I found it lately. I found it the other day. I was actually having a conversation with my parents, and it like took 2 hours for me to basically, in a long-winded, not even an argument, but in a long-winded way, start to recognize from within me that I was just waiting confirmation. I was awaiting validation. I was awaiting for my family to say something to me that would activate my intuitive confirmation. So it was consistently waiting for the validation. And it's weird. It was like, if I recognize that, and I was just reading this in this book that I'm reading, The Let Them Theory, that she says time is like an ice cube. And we're kind of waiting for the ice to melt in regards to connections with our loved ones, our friends, and getting life done. And there's these moments of wake-up calls that occur. I know for myself, mine's been age-related. It's like 37 years old, and those have been, I've had a few of those kind of midlife crisis experiences that were kind of wake-up calls over time sensitivity, over time recall, over how to kind of work with my experience of where I'm at to get to a better place and what that entails. And it's kind of like, in a long-winded way, how long it takes to just get up and to get life done and to get started. And that which really is a part of that, I have to admit, I'm gonna preface this. I have a lot of that. I look at some of my original creations, and the original creator of my soul has to do with generational influence. That generational influence is, I do come from that millennial, Gen Z era of influencers that are like, go live your best possible life, and go live your dream, and go do those things. Go make life happen. And I for a while thought it was, I judged it. I kind of condemned it. I at times deemed it inappropriate, but then I recognized within that is always sparking like the inner child imagination, the best possible life, right? And recognizing that the best possible life is not just a theory, right? The best possible life is something that can take action. but we have to take action on those things that we feel good about, feel right about. So there's been a lot about the intuition lately and how we take action from a space of intuition. And there was so much in probability and in outcome in my own mindset that was basically playing with this depiction of negative influence or negative self-talk or negative experience, negative outcomes, right? Complaining, bitching, whining, victimhood. And then recognizing that within this space, and I've had a few other people bringing this in as an example, is how easy it is to just have choice. And that choice wasn't just choice in action in what we do, but it was actually like energetic choice. Like it was like, yeah, like I hear this story, it's overcomplicated, and I can choose the opposite, right? So instead of negative influence, I can choose to have a better life path. I can choose how to have a positive storyline. I can choose those things for myself. Now, I recognize to live that out might not be an overnight process because I'm still working with my own limits and limitations of time and the perception of time in reality. But there was so much that was just kind of like waiting for that, yes, Corey, this is the right thing. And at the time, it was like waiting for my inner child to hear from my dad or my mom that this was the right thing to do, rather than just listening to the voice and trusting it. And then I look at how much time could be perceived as wasted in waiting for the confirmation and validation. And so at the end of the day, we're looking at where the mind has the worried thinker and where mind can get in the way of a very simple process of just doing and going. And it's really interesting. It reminds me of I have a song that I love that still inspires me, and it's from MGK, and it's called All Night Long. And in the beginning, he says, "Don't think, just go." And he's talking about how he's living his dream. The whole storyline in the message is him, like, he wanted to go be a rapper, and here's how he did it. Don't think, just go. And there's so much right now that recognizes how much time and energy can be wasted on worrying versus going and living life and going and just doing that thing, doing the thing, whatever that thing is. But then when it comes to like spirituality and like purpose and mission and like that galactic side of things, it's like wanting to make the right aligned move and action, because at times life has felt like a labyrinth, like it's felt like a maze. Like if I turn left here, I'll fall down the rabbit hole and I won't get back. Or if I turn right here, something will happen. And all of this influencing direction, trajectory, and compass, but based upon limitation on perceived outcome with, missions, objective, guidelines, right? Like the rule book of life, almost like a game, right? But then there's also this whole click game over, right? And go into I say pursuit, but the embodied action of freedom, liberation, and happiness, and what that entails. And recognizing that sometimes it can't feel fully clear because we might not know what that is, but there is that kind of trial and error energy, which is just go out and try and realign, right? And at the end of the day, I think the message is really simple here. It's about, don't worry about the recipe or the ingredients in the recipe. Just cook something and try it, and just close in on the refinement of what those details are in your own personal journey. And a lot of this is because there is this fear of not living life, or fear of living by that which we know to be true, which could be seen as societal constructs. And I still go through this back and forth. It's like an argument at times. And it's like, well, right, like I want to live my best possible life, and I say best possible life, but like the thing that feels the best for me is to have that journey where I can walk and I can do as, let's say, a tarot reader, or as a healer, or as an embodied way shower, or whatever it is, and know that it'll work out. And then also recognizing too, that if it doesn't work out, right, that faith activates that process from within you to get very clear or refined on the details of the things that do really matter for you, right? We look at that kind of like walking through inauthenticity to learn about our authenticity, how we walk through polarity to learn through the contrast, which is kind of like at times feeling like ducking and diving or weaving and perceiving in a completely different way, is about what it is to just take embodied action. And today the repetitive message was, why not, why not, why not, why not? And it's because when I question my inner command, when I question my inner prompt, when I question that which I can do, I've been reflecting back this, like, why not try that? Like, why not go do that thing? Like, why not record that message? Why not get that tarot card? Why not, flip through that book? Why not send that text message? Why not go get that dinner, right? Why not? Why not? Why not? And allowing myself to drop the excuses because of the sense of comfortability or originality or whatever it is. And the thing is that the original student from within me learned through observation, right? So my original student, my original child from within me learned through embodied teachers, embodied parents, embodied guides, and embodied guardians. And a part of this is that I still learn this way. And as I see people in their truth, and I see them in their embodiment, and I see them living their best possible outcome, or I see them like in their authenticity, something within me still sees that I'm not fully there yet, and it hurts. It hurts not knowing entirely who I am. It hurts not feeling fully trusted in the process. It hurts kind of being at times maybe jealous or envious of seeing what other people are doing, but not to cut them down or to shame them, but rather aware it's like, why not me? Another why not program. And that why not me has to do with that whole conditioning of sisterhood and brotherhood in the parental family, which is like seeing and believing that other people can, but that somehow I can't. And whatever influence that's created on the negative trajectory and the negative feeling state, and also that space, and the word coming up right now is vulnerability. And I know it's because I'm being vulnerable. But that why not me is the version of me within myself that feels left out, that's been abandoned, that hasn't been able to fully face its fears or just feel comfortable in its alignment. And yet there's a sense that within this kind of like feeling of constraint, restraint, or within restriction is also fully accepting where I'm at now. And it's because there's a very big material life that I want to live, and that material life is wanting to have like enough money, right? Wanting to have like, I'm grateful I've got my own home right now. Like, I mean, I am happy I've got my own home. There's things I do have, but there's still this sense that, right, that me being a man on planet Earth would be defined by the things that I would have, right? And that my best possible life was all defined by the material, which would be, and it's because when I look at where I want to be, the place that I want to be is no longer, I guess we could say, in this instance, in this circumstance, not emotional or mental, but physical embodiment. Now, the mind and the emotion are part of that, right? But what I'm saying is there's been this getting caught up in the very materialistic view of the world and the material values and that which would feel comfortable, right? And then recognizing that a part of getting there is taking action on the things that don't feel comfortable, such as being vulnerable, putting myself out there, right? Getting a better job, focusing on a career path, right? Making sure that if I'm saying I want to go do those things, that I take action on those things that I want to do, not just sit back and just wait for it to happen. So yes, there's a magnetic principle here. We're not going to doubt the magnetism, but we're looking at the electrical role, the fire role, the action role, and in what embodied action is. So it's not just thinking differently and feeling differently or whatever it is, right? Not to say, and I'm talking about more the perceived belief system that things can or can't work out, right? Back to the polarity. But a part of this within the confusion space, which is happening for some of us, is we don't have clear directions on our energy or clear directions on where to go. And there might still be fears in regards to collective energy, in regards to right and wrong action or things that stay aligned with us, especially if it's like moral value systems, if it has to do with purpose, it has to do with templates or soul trajectory or anything with multidimensionality. I completely understand. I feel like we're living, not we, all of us, but some of us are living in a collective pocket right now of that field work of it's like, hey, if I do this thing, something can happen. And I recognize where the teaching within us is within trust and within faith and looking forward and not looking back, which is a part of back to that like human encoded reality about life. And the pictures that we let in, the energies we work with, and where we stay consistent and very clear on our goals, our opportunities, our outcome, when we're kind of like re-encoding the self to see life in a new way and to embody life in a new way, outside of the images that reflect like hurt, trauma, pain, abuse, fear, whatever it is, because it's very easy for a susceptible and vulnerable and seeking mind to take this thing in, to process it, and then to continue living it. If you don't know how to process your emotions or work through your traumas and fears and concerns, and then even from the space of even in silence, it can be too much, right? So for myself, I recognize that there was a part of my life that has kind of chosen to silence and or suffocate tendencies because it's still working through something from within it that brings itself happiness and joy. It's just the other day someone said, what do you do that makes you happy? I was like, oh shit. And out came all the complaining. And here's why. It's because my life path and choices haven't been about happiness, but rather necessity, right? We look at the basic survival instincts, food, water, money, home, and living life as that. And surviving is great. That's how we live out the material realm, the material world. But then there's this like, oh wait, but then there's that life path where things get easier. And things don't just get easier because we say they're getting easier. There's action from that space, right? There's embodiment of an easier life. And a lot of this is stress reduction. So for myself, it has been like, go back to therapy, focus on mental health. In the embodiment stages, go fall in love with your foam roller, which is like, that's what I just started doing recently, is getting on the foam roller and working out all the tension in my body and listening to the story. And gosh, my best friend is that thing. And I know it might sound weird as a human, but the foam roller is awesome. It's like, you just sit there and you're like, okay, let's go into that muscle group and let's see what's in there. And a lot of this has been unpacking the body. But then there's also too is that there's this space of myself feeling like that void can feel forever, and where I can take inspired action in my journey that leads to better and better places. And I looked at the other day where I lost my synchronicity and I lost my serendipity. And it's because I have those moments that are, when life is voidy, when it's floaty, when it's in between or transitional, it's not always serendipitous or magic, but there's still like magic that occurs, but it seems to get lost. Those like sudden moments of sparkle or that sudden moment of shine tends to get overridden by this sense of like malaise and depression, because there are still things that I can do to create happiness, create friendships, right? Get involved. Feel like I don't have to hide. And for myself in my local area, it's because there is, truthfully the sense of lack of community, a lack of friendship, a lack of things, because I haven't been able to take action because of fear of what's going on in the world, fears of being hurt, all of that basic, trust issue with life, CPTSD thing that happens. But when it comes to like internal exposure therapy, it's like you just got to go out and, don't think, just go, which is a part of where I'm at right now in this kind of vulnerability stage. But it's really fascinating. It's like this whole time I've been sitting here waiting for someone to say, hey, like you're a good brother, or like you're a good friend, or like you're a good healer, or you're a good, shaman, you're a good Weisho, or you're a good whatever these things are. When in fact, like, I'm actually continually waiting for the external medicine, knowing that the internal remedy has always been there, but I forget it because of experience. And it's that inner, outward, backwards, upside down, kind of way of being, but it's also what it's like living life as an introvert, right? And it's interesting, it's like, even though I'm a man, I'm very sensitive, and it can be difficult walking into places and feeling so much and looking at things and just going, fuck it, I'm not going back there, I'm not going in there, I feel way too much right now. And then reflecting on this very strong masculine archetype that can show up and do anything and be anything. And it feels impermeable, and it feels like super strength. And it's just like, and yet this sensitive inner child feels like it's too soft, or it's like, it's too whatever, because it navigates reality just a little bit different. And sensitivity doesn't even have to be a bad thing. This is where we're building strength in the field. We're building strength in our empathy. We're building strength in our intuition. But there's still this really interesting way of coming to this space of clarity, of recognizing that I'm very inspired by watching other people grow and evolve, and especially the people I care about. But at some level, I continue to leave myself out of having that really good possible life. And it's because of guilt. It's because I've had this kind of defined authority issue where I gave my sense of authority away, which was my embodied power and embodied action and confidence. I gave it away. I gave it away because I had to learn from the arrogance. I had to learn from the ignorance. I had to learn from the lack of importance. I had to learn from all of it. Like, I just had to learn from all the crap. And so in a life path of polarity, it's like, how do we rebuild when we've completely deconstructed the aspect of self? That, like, it's like I took this really beautiful version of me and completely dismantled it to go through transcendence, and now I'm trying to rebuild it up, but in a new way. And it's really interesting because it's one of those things where it feels like I'm returning to something that once was, yet continually creating something in a completely new trajectory. And so it's fascinating. It's a redefinition of life, but it's showing up from a space of evolution. And even when I bring this up, even the word evolution itself feels like it is threatening to a lot of faith, to a lot of God consciousness within people, that I state evolution, and evolution's it feels many times like I walk alone in this journey, but I know I don't, right? Which is why we have these experiences, to share our truth, to share our magic, to share our light with the world, and to not just like give it away, right? To not just give our power away or give our light away or give our love away, but to hold it and embody it and cherish it while it's here. Because the thing is I know for myself, I'm seeing how finite life is, that I almost fear how finite it is as well. And fearing the finite can give me the opportunity to live and love the finite, which is a part of the material expression. It's enjoying the moments I have. It's taking action towards perhaps creating friends, you know, in these experiences, moving to a new neighborhood, getting up and taking that embodied action, staying vulnerable, staying open to receive, being positive in my trajectory, but also recognizing, like, I have those shades of me as well that are in the negative, the shades of me that aren't accepting, the shades of me that are hurt, the shades of me that are bored, or the shades of me that are boring, that are not going to be bubbly, sparkly, and full of life, that are perhaps resentful or sad or still learning or are very cautious, because the world, the collective, and myself has had this proving point that it's not safe. And yet it's like kind of waiting confirmation, the validation it's safe to go out there. But that's an inner prompt. That's an inner command. And then it's also about trusting that the intuition is going to guide me perfectly no matter what. And that I can let life be life and not try to control the external or control others or control the outcomes, but step fully into whatever this embodied teaching is and trust it fully, even if it doesn't feel nice. It got me this far, and it might just get me a little bit further if I give it a shot. And for that, I'm grateful.